We just learned the university paid $500,000 to Darren Van Michael. Van Michael was suspended from Austin Peay State University back in September after he shared an article quoting Kirk's own thoughts.
One final story I want to touch on today, guys. It's a controversial one. I want you to hear me out. Bear with me on this because this does get edgy and you might be a little surprised by my take. But anyway, a public university professor was kicked out of his position after he posted an insensitive and callous post about Charlie Kirk after Charlie Kirk's murder. There was a big pile-on including from Republican politicians, and he was let go. Well, they weren't really allowed to do that. And now the chickens have come home to roost. So we're going to watch some local news reporting about this topic. We have this professor being fired for mocking Charlie Kirk, and now he's being reinstated and even paid a settlement. So let's watch this clip from local news reporting.
Massive settlement for an APSU professor suspended after sharing an article quoting Charlie Kirk. We just learned the university paid $500,000 to Darren Van Michael. Van Michael was suspended from Austin Peay State University back in September after he shared an article quoting Kirk's own thoughts about gun violence. APSU eventually decided to bring Van Michael back after an apparent threat of a lawsuit. The university is now paying him $500,000 to prevent any potential lawsuit, including First Amendment claims. The university also agreed to apologize for not following the tenure termination process.
So this does not surprise me. This guy posted something on social media. He posted that Charlie Kirk quote that a bunch of people have dug up about how gun deaths are the price you pay in a society for guns or something that people were sharing ironically after he was shot to death to say wow, he's just playing by the rules he lived by, or I guess this is what Republicans want, is a society like this. I think and I've talked about this, I think they are both, that quote out of context mischaracterizes what Charlie Kirk was actually saying in those remarks, which I have listened to, which all he was observing, it wasn't even an argument, it was just observing that if you have guns in your society, you'll have gun deaths. The same way if you have cars, you'll have car crashes. That's not a edgy take, it's just a true observation. So I think it's a bad faith quote. And then I just find it gross to after someone's brutally murdered, somebody with kids and a wife, to be trolling them with quotes like this. But it's important to me to make a distinction here. He wasn't calling for more violence. He wasn't openly supporting murdering people. He was glibly mocking and making a political point about Charlie Kirk after the man had died. It was an insensitive and gross post, but it wasn't a threat. It wasn't an incitement of violence, or it wasn't anything else that would constitute potentially some kind of illegal speech. So it was speech that in any other context would be protected by the First Amendment. And so that's why they're afraid that he'll sue them, because this is a public university and they typically have to respect the professor's First Amendment rights to make statements on issues of public concern outside of the classroom in their personal capacity. Yeah, government employers can't really punish people for that, typically, according to the law. So I'm not surprised by this. But the news of this did, in fact, cause quite a shitstorm online. So the New York Post posted an article about this. Tennessee University reinstates professor fired over Charlie Kirk post, will pay him $500,000. And this blew up and got a bunch of angry comments like, defund this university, fire him again permanently, ridiculous that he's being reinstated. And I certainly understand the frustration here. I, too, am very bothered by the way that many people who are more liberal or progressive leaning responded to the death of Charlie Kirk in a really glib way. However, I can't agree with these people. They were wrong to fire him for this, for a couple of reasons. One, that this was a tenured professor and there's a legal process they contractually agree to go after if they want to fire or terminate a tenured professor, and they just skipped it because they were being pressured by politicians and they just canned him. That's obviously not legal, and that's obviously a violation of his contractual due process rights. So they can't do that. They clearly panicked because you had Senator Marsha Blackburn and other Republicans who were supposedly against cancel culture tweeting at this university official and demanding this guy be fired because of, again, a quote that he posted from Charlie Kirk. He didn't incite more violence. He didn't support murder or anything like that. He made a crass and insensitive post. I do think that's obnoxious that he would post that, but also that people, especially politicians, should not be trying to get people fired for distasteful posts. That's not the road we want to go down. And also, there's a First Amendment issue with this action that is very clear and very obvious. It is affirmed Supreme Court precedent that public college professors enjoy academic freedom and First Amendment rights. So speech that is First Amendment protected, and his post absolutely is. There's no definition or exception anywhere in our laws that it would somehow meet that it's not First Amendment protected. They can't be retaliated against. They can't be fired. They can't be punished for it. And you actually have to agree or should agree with that, even if you are conservative or you are right wing, because imagine a different scenario. Imagine you have a conservative leaning or moderate professor at a public university who tweets, "There are only two sexes, male and female," right? Public statement. After a trans person is killed or something. He makes a political point in a kind of crass way, but it's his opinion and whatever. Well, and then you have Democratic elected officials tagging the public university in public posts and demanding that that person be fired. Can they fire them? Because it's the same thing. It's the same legal principle at stake. Either they have a First Amendment right to make public statements on issues of public concern and keep their jobs, or they don't. And in our current laws, they do, first of all. And more importantly, you should want that, even as someone on the right, because most of the time, the unpopular ideas from college professors are going to be non-woke things. Those are the consensus view. So protecting these free speech and First Amendment rights is even more important if you have right-leaning views, because those are going to be the minority views that get targeted when it comes to college campuses. So academic freedom, at least until very recently, with some of the other issues that have popped up, was disproportionately something conservatives supported. And many of the cases involving academic freedom and professors getting terminated for their beliefs or activism, it was usually left-leaning institutions and administrators and pressure campaigns going after offensive conservative professors. And they were protected by First Amendment precedent, by free speech, by contractual agreements at private universities, by tenure, a lot of these things that actually more right-leaning people supported for a long time because they understood their ideas were controversial and minority opinions. In the wake of the Charlie Kirk thing, this flipped a little bit on its head, but you actually can't go along with that, or unless you're undermining the protections for your own side. So I want professors to be able to speak their mind as government employees, especially as public universities, but really more general. I would rather have them be able to say what they want to say and not lose their jobs. Obviously, we're not talking about criminal incitement. We're not talking about providing material support for terrorism. Any of those kinds of things is a different situation. But when it's just offensive social media posts that hurt some people's feelings, I can understand the frustration, but you can't be firing people for that. Not with our First Amendment, and not really in any society that values open debate and discourse, which is the kind of society that I want to live in. So even though I find this guy's post gross, I don't agree with it at all, I will defend and support his First Amendment rights. Now, did they have to give him a $500,000 settlement? I don't know. That will be a decision they made based on what they thought they were going to lose a lawsuit if he sued, right? So they don't want to part with their money. They probably gave him that because they thought he could win millions if he took them to court and won, which they presumably think he would, because a lot of the stuff here is going on his side, from the contract to the Constitution and more. So they made a calculated decision to give him that settlement so he wouldn't sue and to give him his job back because they were in the wrong there. This is not something conservatives should just feel emotional about and pounce on and say, we got to get rid of tenure protections. We've got to remove professors from First Amendment protections because we can't have them saying shitty things about Charlie Kirk. It's like, no, do not be short-sighted, people. These are the same protections that protect minority viewpoints from pro-life professors, from professors who criticize transgenderism, all the things you care about. And when it comes to free speech and First Amendment rights, it really is an all or nothing deal. You can't have it just for your team, just for your tribe, for your side. It's either we all enjoy it, even in the cases where it offends us and upsets us, or no one does. And those on the right who are embracing cancel culture tactics and who are eroding First Amendment protections to go after people in the current moment who maybe are anti-Israel or maybe are anti-Charlie Kirk in distasteful ways, they're not just hypocrites. They are eroding some of the legal protections that will ultimately then not be in place when the left comes back even harder next time around. I think that's a mistake. I think it's all a dangerous game, and I'm going to stand on the side of free speech, open debate, and academic freedom, regardless of the substance and whether it personally offends me or not, which in this case it absolutely does. But that actually doesn't matter when it comes to principles and commitments that we have to ideas and values that are much bigger than any one post. What do you guys think, though? I want to hear from you about this, especially if you're somebody who's been along with me as I've criticized a lot of the left-wing attacks on freedom of speech. Then I want to hear your thoughts on this as well. Do you stand with me or do you disagree? That's always allowed too. Let me know in the comments. Make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and all of that. And that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody, and we'll talk again real soon.